I'm Vishwanadham, professor in computer science and automation. I joined several years back at the Indian Institute of Science, did my bachelor's, master's, and a PhD here. My PhD was in control systems engineering, which has given me the systems overview. I love working with industries as a part of my research. I worked with process industries in process automation, and later I switched to manufacturing systems design and modeling them. We have some fundamental papers and a highly cited textbook in this particular area. And we have worked with several foreign and Indian companies to build control systems for their factory floors. And later in late 90s, I moved to Singapore, which is a logistics hub. So from the point of view of logistics and supply chain, I moved to work from manufacturing to the supply chain network design. So that's where I had interesting work on logistics, integrated knowledge-based logistics, and several papers dealing with supply chains and so on. But what I found in the later years of 2005-06, I found the supply chain is not just a product to the suppliers to the consumers, but there is a lot of interference from the government sources, and there are several delivery mechanisms that are possible, and also it is also resource dependent. That's where, because of the outsourcing and other issues that are coming in, so I have written a book on what is called ecosystem-based supply chain, this one. But later, I taught this course for about 10 years, and later I found that the so-called business model innovation, where whether it's for a startup or for a small and medium enterprise or an MNC, its business model is dependent on an ecosystem. And recently you find that a lot of big companies, you can take it as Kodak, Barnes and Nobles and all that, who have excellent supply chains, who have been leaders in their industries, they are basically going bankrupt. Whereas other companies without much resources, like Uber, like Airbnb, or several other companies without much resources, without much research, they are coming up and becoming industry leaders. So I was looking at why this is happening. So if you are an old company, like an automobile company or something, how do you actually re-engineer yourself and face this digital disruption that is being happening? And second thing is, if you want to have a startup, and if the startup is, how do you make it a blockbuster industry after 5 years? So my emphasis is that you should focus on design of your business model properly, so that whether you are an incumbent or you are a new startup, so that you do very well in the business. So I will give a semi-analytical view of what is a business model. I mean, this is a word that has been very commonly used for the last 20 years, but I don't know how many people seriously understand what it is. I have talked to a lot of startups, both in Bangalore and some of them in Silicon Valley, but they don't have a comprehensive view of the business model. But before saying that, let me tell you what is a business model. The business model, according to me, has 7 pillars. And the first slide shows you there are 3 main components of the business model: customer value proposition, profit formula, and partner network. Well, everybody knows you require customers when you are selling a product or a service. So it is basically, customer means you may not have one customer, but you may have several customer segments. Like for example, Google has provides free service of email to most of us, and using that information, they provide the advertising service to some other customers. So the email service is free for most of us, and whereas they charge for the advertising service. So similarly, there are several other examples that one can look. For example, there is a company called Siemens. It has three segments customers. One is the high infrastructure companies like who build airports. The second one is the distribution companies who sell the building materials. The third one is small house constructor, this one. The kind of services that you provide for each customer segments are different. So the delivery mechanisms for each segment are different for this. So the kind of algorithms, the theory that you use would be different. So first of all, as an entrepreneur, you should, if you have a business, you should find out who is your customer. Is it a big company or is it individual consumers? So who are they and how do you want to deliver whatever your product or service is to them? And the second one is what is your profit formula? After all, you're in the business to make money. So there are two things. One is cost, second one is the profit. The cost is the one that is, well, basically when you deliver the product, it is called total delivery cost. That is from the manufacturing cost, logistics cost, and other things that you pay along the supply chain when you are delivering the product to the customer. So the second one is the revenue model. Revenue model is it could be subscription, it could be the cost of the product, or it could be pay-per-use models that are used in cloud and in data and so on. But here, one important point here is that the cost of the product, can the cost be, one is the product cost, second one is can it be subsidized by some of your partners who are benefiting from your product. One of the examples in newspapers is the advertisers. The advertisers they basically reduce your cost by paying you some money for the advertisement. Whereas for the newspaper readers, you supply it at a very cheap rate. So the revenue model for newspapers could be subscription. So basically it's very important that you should look at your customer segments and the cost for each of these customer segments. So for some of them you could make it very cheap or free, and for some of them you charge it to them. And also there could be partners, the partner network that cooperates to produce and deliver the products. Now these partners could be companies like the suppliers, logistics providers and so on, who help you to deliver the product to the customers and also in the manufacturing. But there can be partners who share the costs. You know, for example, if you're doing a newspaper, the advertisers share the cost for you and so on. So basically the partner network is an important thing, that it is not just your supply chain partners, it could be your partners who provide the cloud infrastructure, it could be data analytics companies, it could be somebody like Google or YouTube who will basically host your product. So the next slide shows that the four pillars of this business model. This shows four pillars. One is the supply chain, second one is resources, third one is institutions, and fourth one is value delivery to the customer segments. Let me first, to manufacture a product or service, you require a supply chain. Basically, from you identify what is your product. From the product, the components, you source the components from various suppliers, you assemble them, and store them and finally supply to the customers. And to do all this, you require resources. These resources, human, financial, and natural resources, and industry resources. In institutions, whatever you do, have to follow the government rules and regulations. You have to pay taxes and so on. And finally, you have to deliver all this to the customers. And you have not one customer segment, but several customer segments. In the old business model, usually you have only single customer. You put everything in a retail shop, and the customer goes there and buys, and you want to. That's how you make your money. But the new business models, you have several customer segments, and each of them contribute to your profit. And so that's where your value delivery to the customer segments becomes very important. So let me just expand this one using this model. One is in the supply chain, you have several customer segments. So you have your product for the primary customers is different from the product for the secondary customers. So that's where your primary customer processes and secondary customer processes come in. And also, whatever product, whether it is for either customers, you require domain-specific hardware software. So that is what you need to build. If you are building an automobile, then you require the domain-specific software hardware for that. And also, you require social networking with the government and other stakeholders in this. And you want new revenue sponsors, let they be the advertisers or somebody. And also, you have institutions, government taxes, policies, intellectual property, R&D, and so on. You have legal and quality issues that are needed. So if you look at the resources are mobile internet, social media, and cloud. These basically help you to find out what are they thinking of your customers and what is happening in terms of the media, their opinion about the products and requirements. And you require water, power, and industry clusters. Of course, market intelligence, mobile apps, and for the partner network. You require, of course, the delivery infrastructure, human resources, financial resources, and VCs, microfinance, R&D institutions for innovations. Now, this technology is changing everything, and technology is creating a lot of disruptive innovation. So the R&D institutions, the linkage with R&D institutions and innovation becomes very important. When you come to delivery mechanisms, there is the cost-sharing partners and sponsors. So you have to deliver the service or product to them. And as we saw before, we have several segments of customers, the primary customers, secondary customers. So for the primary customers, the requirements are different from the secondary customers. So you have the manufacturing or design processes which are different for each of these customer segments. And then, although these customer segments are different, the products are similar. So you require the domain-specific hardware software. And you require social networking with the governments and stakeholders, because it becomes very important. You are a company, and it is a network company. You are not alone, and you are with others. So you require social networking. And also, you want new revenues from sponsors. Can somebody sponsor your product in the product like the advertising in newspapers? And so you should have the processes for new revenues. The second one is institutions which are government, social, and others, because whatever product you produce has to meet the legal and quality requirements, and also it has to follow the regulations of the government. You have to pay taxes and so on. And also your industry organizations, your co-industry players also need to be considered. Then of course you have the resources and delivery mechanisms. In terms of the resources, you have digital resources like mobile internet, social media, and cloud. If you want to do the customer perception, if you want to know the customer perception of the products in general and your product in particular, then you need to do data analytics of all this, and you require, of course, water, power, and other resources. There is the market intelligence, mobile apps, and partner network, and human resources, financial resources like VCs and microfinance. You require R&D resources and innovation because technology creates disruptive innovations recently. So you should keep abreast of the technology innovations. And delivery technologies and mechanisms is an important part because you have several customer segments, and for each customer segment you have to deliver the product. You require the logistics, cost sharing, and product service delivery, and so on. And there may be some third-party beneficiaries, so you can do some cross sales for them, and that is also part of your delivery mechanisms. And above all, you should be able to coordinate, execute, and have a dashboard for all this. And that is the complete business model for your company, so that you can meet the customer value proposition that you're proposing, and also make profits and save on your cost cutting. Yeah. So I'm Vishwanadham from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. I've been a professor here, and then I was in Singapore for almost 10 years in the National University of Singapore. And later I worked as a clinical professor in Indian School of Business, and I was running a global logistics and manufacturing strategies, which is called LABS, Center of Excellence. And finally, I'm sort of retired now as a research professor at Indian Institute of Science back home. So my interests have changed. I started my life as a control systems engineer and moved to manufacturing systems, design of control systems for factory floors, for supply chains, logistics networks, and so on. And currently I'm looking at the business model innovations and so on. So the first one question that is important is, how important is higher education for a country? So if you look at the statistics, there is the statistics that shows the GDP, the percentage of global GDP of any country towards on one axis, and the number of highly valued educational institutions, high-profile educational institutions in a country, then it is linear. In other words, if you have more high-profile top 500 universities in a country, then your GDP is higher. I mean, this is the statistics that is available. So, and obviously all of us know US makes the highest, and next comes China and so on. So if you look at India, it comes to very low in this one, because the top tier universities in India is much less. So I think the Indian government and the people, the educationists, should see how they can improve the educational levels, and also the top tier, getting into the top tier universities. This one. I mean, if you want me to graph, you can basically get it from Google, which shows that the global GDP, percentage of global GDP versus the number of top tier universities is linear. So that is what is happening. And that is where I think most of the countries are trying to look at higher education institutions and so on. And another thing is the technology innovation. The technology innovation is driving everything nowadays. I mean, the mobile internet is like the Model T or car of the Henry Ford in 1920s. So, but that basically is, I mean, all of us in India or everywhere have the mobile internets, mobile phones. But how do you manufacture them? What is the future of these mobile phones? And what is the future of Wi-Fi? This one in various parts, particularly in the rural areas and in India, these become important parts. One thing about Indian industry, which we have observed, is we manufacture every product in our country. So from cell phones to cars to motorbikes to everything, whatever you need, it is manufactured. But where do you get the design from? From somewhere else. Where do you get the machines where to manufacture this from? Somewhere else. So basically the issue is that there are very less number of products which are designed and with the machines that are done here. So it's very important we should have innovations, not only technology innovations, but innovations for products, innovations for manufacturing processes to manufacture the same thing and so on. For example, electronic manufacturing is all outsourced. For example, Flexatronics and others, they come here and manufacture all the products here. We have every product that is available, but not the processes that is there. That is one important point that Indian manufacturing has to, that is where the innovations and other things should concentrate on. Well, India has 1.2 billion people, 800 million people live in rural areas, 400 million people live in urban areas. Now, if you look at one of the social problems that India has is the poverty and malnutrition. Malnutrition is one of the problems that need to be tackled, and the government is trying to do it in its own way. 25% of the people in India, both in urban and rural, are malnutrition. So how do you provide nutritious food? Nutritious food doesn't mean grains, rice and wheat and so on, but it has to be vitamin enriched, it has to be calcium and mineral enriched food that has to be this one. So there is a need for India to do two things. One is to increase the agriculture productivity. The agriculture productivity in India is very low. It's 1/10 of what is there in the US, 1/10, and the most productive agriculture country is Egypt. So to reach those levels, it is possible to use what is called precision agriculture, use data analytics and other things, so that other technology innovations, so that you can improve the productivity of the land. And second thing is, once the productivity increases, you can produce enough food for the people, enough grains for the people, using less amount of land, and the surplus land can be used for industry production. Now, currently there is a tension between, when you want to acquire land for the industry, then there is a tension between the industry and the agriculture. That can be solved using, by increasing the agriculture productivity. The third thing that needs to be done is what is called post-harvest research. This is where, the food, after all, you don't eat grains, you eat food. So is it possible to provide processed food, processed nutritious food for people? For example, in advanced countries like the United States, 80% of the food that people use is processed. So whereas in India it is only 5%. So improving the processed food and supplying the food at cheaper rates to this one instead of grains to the poor people as well as the other population will improve the Indian economy a lot. And that's the first point. And of course, education is important. As you can see from the statistics, even from advanced countries like the United States, the payment levels, the salaries of people who are educated has gone up in the last 10 years, whereas the salaries of the people who are not educated has not gone up at all. So it is the educational levels of the people is important in several ways to any country. The first thing is it will basically the levels of thinking of the people and also the kind of things that people use. Now, instead of using farm labor, you could do other important industrial things and so on. So this is the so-called building smart cities, building smart agriculture and also smart manufacturing, as it is called nowadays, is very important for this country. So if you look at the Indian economy, we have, in terms of the manufacturing, we have a lot of small-scale industries, this one, about 40%. We have family enterprises, big ones. We have a lot of multinational companies here, and we have also public sector undertakings. So in these public sector undertakings, of course, like everywhere else, in India also they are losing this one. They want to outsource whatever the public sector, this one, and they want to nationalize instead of denationalize these things and so on. But one thing that becomes important, I mean, India also, the government has reduced the FDI regulations, foreign direct investment regulations, and it is possible for people to come to India and start investing in agriculture, in food technologies, and various other things like auto industries or in FMCG and retail and so on. So one thing that I in particular feel where India can benefit, and also the companies which are coming in from abroad can benefit, or in terms of food processing, in terms of FMCG distribution, in terms of processed food and processed nutritious food. And these kind of companies will certainly benefit. Of course, the companies which make smartphones, provide Wi-Fi services, and provide automated cars or other infrastructure, they are also most welcome. I mean, basically they provide a lot of traction for the economy here and so on. So if you one thing that is good about India is it has 50% of the population, Indian population is young, is less than 28 years old. And basically if you look at the educational levels, it is pretty high from this. If you look at the statistics in terms of Indian population, it could be 10-12%. But if you look at the numbers, there are millions. There are millions having people who are graduated from engineering, from science graduates, who could be very good employees for these multinationals if they are properly trained. So I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for multinational startups to come to India and so on. There are a lot of startups which of the people of Indian origin who came here and started, from food delivery to financial tech, the deliveries which are doing very well. So I see the future of India is going to be in private-owned enterprises. Because the government-owned enterprises the government is not willing to start any more enterprises and so on. So there is a lot of future in terms of high technologies, disruptive technologies. There is a lot of future for companies from abroad to do it here. And the one positive point here is the government regulations are very nice, and you get a lot of tax benefits and all that. And second thing is the infrastructure is improving. I mean, there is a lot of foreign direct investment that is allowed in the infrastructure, particularly in the ICT area. A third important point is a lot of young people who are educated, who can be your employees. So these are the three things that you get.